7 years ago, I stood on this very stage at the PLM Innovation Forum, presenting my thesis that I had done for Technia. I had just wrapped up a 6-month project investigating the shift from a linear to a circular business for consumer and retail companies. I focused on digitalization and in specific, how a PLM system could be an enabler. And that was when my journey in the circular economy began. And today, I'm going to take you on that journey. And I will make clear the urgent need for an economic and moral revolution towards a more sustainable, responsible, and circular system. So the title of today's talk is Responsible Innovation: How Circularity and Digitalization Leads to Smarter Products. But I don't think we can begin to discuss how to design smarter products if we don't address the fundamental aspects of our current economic system and its inefficient use of resources. But let's start from the beginning. So, sparked by the realizations coming from the thesis, I co-founded a circular startup called Waste to Value. This is Nora. Nora, she works at a company called Build Best. She's just finished a large construction project. And as with every construction project, she over-orders 10% of the material, just in case something breaks, because they can't afford to stop production. Now, after the project is finished, she realizes she has 3 pallets of roof tiles left. And she just needs to get rid of this material, and she has nowhere to store it, so she pays the waste collector to come and get it for her. Just take it away. On the other side of the market, we have Kevin. Kevin works as a roofer at the Rooftop, and he's just about to start a new project. So he is in need of these types of products to a good price. But at the moment, there's no easy way for Nora and Kevin to meet. The solution is Waste to Value, a digital marketplace for trading with industrial waste. On the platform, Nora can log in, she can add her products, she can describe the condition and the price. On this ad, Kevin can click buy and choose a way of transport. Now, Nora gets money from the products that she previously paid to get rid of, and Kevin will find great material at a good price. And everything is to win-win for the environment. Because this story about Nora and Kevin, it's actually true. Construction industry has a huge impact. It accounts for half of the world's extraction of resources, 40% of the world's carbon dioxide emission, and 1/3 of the world's entire waste. Now, at that time, 7 years ago, Waste to Value was a novel idea with lots of potential. We even won 2 first prizes in 2 entrepreneurship competitions. Now, how do you think this went? Good? Bad? Well, what if I told you that this was a complete failure? We did not succeed. Then you might wonder why. Mostly because we encountered so many obstacles trying to start a circular company in a linear world. And I'm just going to give you some examples. Laws and regulations made it super difficult to trade with waste because when the material is classified as waste, other laws apply. And did you know that it's oftentimes cheaper to buy new products than taking care of the ones we already have? Because we tax labor higher than we tax resources. But today I want to focus on one barrier, maybe one of the biggest. I vividly remember a phone call that I did with a building company owner. Let's call him Göran. I asked Göran, do you want to get money from the waste materials that you previously paid to get rid of, while at the same time decreasing your carbon dioxide emissions? Do you know what he replied? Without really considering it that much, Göran said, "No, I'm too traditional for that." Being stuck in old habits and being too traditional is one of the main obstacles towards the transition to a circular economy. We humans are creatures of habits, and we tend to take the easy way out. So if there's one key takeaway from this presentation, it's this: don't be like Göran. The Görans of the world will not enable sustainable innovations. Someone wisely said, "Nothing is more dangerous than old ideas that are still profitable." And I believe that to be very true. Why? Well, because since the first industrial revolution, we've had the same economic system. It's over 250 years. It's based on the mindset of taking products, extracting resources, making products, using them for a bit, and then wasting them. And throughout these years, we've become so fixated on creating more products, selling more, and maximizing throughput without really considering the long-term consequences of our actions. And this approach, it has undoubtedly made us very wealthy financially. But at what cost? Let's look at some numbers. So when the first industrial revolution kicked off in 1771, our global population was only 10% of what it is today. So we consumed less, we produced less, but we also used our products for longer, and we generated significantly less waste. Actually, the amount of waste per person per year in Sweden has skyrocketed from 30 kilos to almost 500 kilos in recent years. And take resource extraction as an example. It more than tripled from the years of 1970 to 2019. And if we continue on this trajectory, the consequences will be dire. Half of the world's carbon dioxide emissions stems from the extraction of resources and the production of product. So despite all these advancements that we see here over the past 250 years, how come we're still operating within a system fit for a world that no longer exists? Of course, several reasons, but one key thing is companies can still be profitable within the system. The old ideas win and traditions win. At least if you focus on maximizing throughput here and now, at least if you focus on maximizing the results in the next quarterly report. But if you focus long term, then would you be so profitable? Should these companies even be allowed to be profitable? If you consider all the hidden costs and risks associated with this approach? Well, if we look at the World Economic Forum's Global Risk Report, they state that the top global risks long-term are all environmental risks. So a business that fails to address these risks, that fails to mitigate these risks, it will be costly for that business, and it will also be costly for the future generations. Now, what is the solution? In a circular economy, we focus on retaining value and maximizing value for as long as possible, instead of maximizing throughput. We create fewer products that we can use for longer. In that way, we minimize waste and we minimize the dependency on resource extraction. Ultimately, we can decouple growth from resource use. Now let's look a bit closer into the difference between a linear product and a circular product. So when a linear product becomes obsolete after its first use phase, a circular product is designed for a longer lifetime with a higher quality initially, that is designed to be reused, refurbished, reused again, and then at the end of its lifetime, recycled. So a linear product and a circular product differ from each other in the way that value is created and maintained. Now, a circular product can also give you business opportunities. Let's take IKEA, for example. They identified premature product lives as an inefficiency in their company. So they gave their couches 4 more lives while doubling the revenue. So how do we create these more responsible and circular products? Well, the folk singer Pete Singer, he sings and he says that if it cannot be reduced, reused, repaired, rebuilt, refurbished, refinished, resold, recycled, or composted, then it should be restricted, removed, redesigned from production. He sang this 20 years ago, but it's still very true. The 10 R's in the circular economy describes what Pete Seeger means. These show 10 strategies for how you can think of when you design more circular products. It goes from the design phase, use phase, and take-back phase. And did you know that in the design phase, that's when you decide 80% of the product's environmental impact? That's why it's crucial to implement circularity strategies already here. And here you could use the PLM system in that design phase. So I'm just going to go through them briefly. It's about refusing to use the material altogether. Like we always say that the most sustainable building is the one that is already being built. So not building that, satisfying the need for that material with something else. Trying to reduce the amount of material that goes into your product, using more lightweight material, for example. Then about prolonging the lifetime, designing the product so that it can be reused, repaired, and refurbished. And at the end of the life, we focus on recycling to recover the value. Now, it's a common misconception that circular economy is only about recycling. It's not. That's only the final stage, after you've done everything else in the pyramid. This is another model that I think is great to describe resource strategies within the circular economy. It's highly linked to the 10 R's that I just showed you. It's about narrowing the loop, slowing the loop, closing the loop, and regenerating the loop. So narrowing the loop is about focusing on efficiencies in production, minimizing the materials that you use in your products. Slowing the loop is about prolonging the lifetime of your products. And here also circular business models are included, such as offering your product as a service, renting out your products, leasing them, or sharing them. And then closing the loop is about recollecting the products after they've been used for recycling, as an example. Now, regenerating is about giving back more than you take. Just to give you an example, Danone invested $6 million into soil health and regenerative agriculture. That's one way of trying to give back more than you take. But I also think that this is maybe the most difficult strategy and the one that is mostly subject to greenwashing. So it's really important to be transparent with what you're actually doing here. Now, we say that we also want to create those like circular and smarter products, but we, of course, need to make sure that the products that we create are still desirable from the consumer standpoint, that they are viable and that they're feasible to implement. So I think that a good idea is to merge these models in your innovation processes. So for example, feasibility. I want to highlight technology here, because technology is one key for a circular economy to evolve. Take AI, for example. Using AI could help you in narrowing the loop. It could help you design more regenerative materials, more lightweight materials in an easier way. It could help you slow the loop, because it could provide your products with the possibilities of being more like robots that they can offer to perform services for you, so that you don't need to sell the product in itself, you can sell the function of the product. It could also help you in the sharing economy, because it could decrease costs of the logistics of sharing resources amongst different people with autonomous vehicles. It could also help you in closing the loop through image recognition, in sorting the materials that you recollect from the consumer into repairing or recycling. It could also help you in the resale phase to authenticate product origin and to be able to price the product fairly. And of course, use all this data that you get from the life cycle in your design phase and simulating new design options. And I know Julie will talk more about how AI can help you create more smarter products later on this stage. But what I lack here is transparency. Gone are the days when you can put vague sustainability claims on your product and think you can get goodwill. Customers demand transparency. I've even seen studies where customers are willing to pay more for sustainable products, but they demand transparency in return. And we also have new European laws coming that state that you need to be more transparent about your products. We have the green claims saying that every claim you make about a product needs to be backed up with real data. We also have the Eco-Design for Sustainable Products Regulation, ESPR, that mandates that all products sold in the EU needs to have a digital product passport attached in 2030. This means that you will have to have a data carrier, such as a QR code, attached on the garment. It should be scannable from the consumer standpoint, and they should be able to access information about the product, its material, its supply chain, environmental data, and circularity data. So by law, you will need to gather this data about your products. Now, you can choose to take this as just another law you need to comply with that would make your products more transparent, but you could also see it as a business opportunity, because data about the product and its life cycle is crucial to enable the circular economy. For example, if you want to repair a product, the repairer needs to know what material the product is made of in order to know how to repair it. The recycler would need to know what material the product is made of in order to recycle it. So it's key. I started working with the real estate company Humlegården 6 years ago. They are owned by Länsförsäkringar. They have properties in the Stockholm area, and they have approximately 39 billion Swedish kronor in property value. Our first project that we did was a research project where we investigated how we could implement these circularity strategies that I just told you within an office adaptation. So we focused on trying to design with less materials, trying to refuse to use certain products and materials. We tried to reuse as much as possible within the office space. We tried to repair the products, take them down, refurbish them, and we recycled what couldn't be repaired. Now, we managed to decrease the carbon dioxide emissions with almost 70%, the material use with 66%, and the cost of buying new products we decreased with 35%. Now, this is in comparison to a traditional office adaptation where you pretty much blow everything out and put in new products. So we really had an impact here. And all in all, we could say we managed to narrow the loop, slow the loop, and close the loop in this project. Now, what about the desirability towards the customer? This is where it gets tricky. Because here again, the Görans of the world come in. Traditions come in here. Usually, customers don't really have demands on reusing products or circularity demands when they move into a new office space. And I think this is the time where the business, the real estate company, would need to communicate to the customer why this would be important to them. This would be important to them because they have their own sustainability goals. And now we have the new CSRD directive stating that every company needs to report on their Scope 3 emissions, and in those emissions, renovations of an office is included. So that's why this would directly, the impact of the office adaptation would directly impact their sustainability goals. So it should be important to them. In terms of feasibility, we actually created a process for how to conduct these circular offices. And in that, we also created a way of measuring this. So we actually have a way of now measuring what we do in circularity, but also the result. So the result you see here, amount of reused materials, impact, and so forth. But we also measure what steps we go through. So we can be very transparent with what we've done and the result. Now that metric, that circularity KPI, we also included in a sustainability-linked loan. This means that if Humlegården fails to reach their circularity goals, they will get a higher interest rate. So we created direct financial incentives to also implement circularity at the company, which I think is key. In terms of feasibility, we also really need to use technology and digitalization to scale this. We need to have a digital inventory of the products in the office to know how to reuse them and when to reuse them. And we need to create digital twins of our buildings so that we can have them as material banks in the future. So here, digitalization is also key. One thing that is also key is the other prerequisites necessary. So at the moment, Humlegården is developing a reuse hub, a physical space where they can store the products that they are going to reuse and repair them. Now, in order to keep track of this, they have like a digital inventory, and they also use a digital marketplace for trading with this material. Just like the idea we had with waste to value 7 years ago. So I started out 7 years ago trying to start a company, a circular company in a linear world, and I encountered several obstacles. Since then, we've seen progress. We see more and more companies having circularity on the agenda, and we see laws and regulations being formed that forces companies to create these more sustainable and circular products. But I think progress is still moving a bit too slow. The Görans of the world are still out there, desperately holding on to status quo. But I'm hopeful that more companies will start to measure circularity, will start to find other ways to define growth, and not only focusing on maximizing throughput. And to start to create these more circular products by leveraging technology in the right way. So my final words today will be, join in on this revolution. And above all, don't let traditions stop you.